With that, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Ms. Anna Kotyar from Israel. Ms. Kotyar holds a degree in ecology, and she's a representative of the Scientific Advisory and Research Council of the ALLATRA Global Research Center. Ms. Kotyar, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. It is an honor to address you today. Thank you. Plastic is no longer separate from the natural environment. It now functions within it, gradually destroying its natural processes. Since the mid-20th century, more than 9 billion tons of plastic have been produced. It has become one of the most widely used materials and is used in almost all areas of life, from transport and aviation, medicine, cosmetics, and household goods. However, less than 10% of the total volume is recycled, and the bulk of it is accumulated in the environment. For example, a plastic bottle that does not disappear over time but breaks down into particles the size of a grain of sand, less than 5 millimeters, and this is microplastic. Some of them we can still see, but many already looks like a dust. But this plastic dust continue to break down further. The particles become so small that they cannot even be seen with a regular microscope. They are thousands of times smaller than thickness of a hair and can be smaller than human cells and many bacteria. And this is already nanoplastic. But it is important to understand that when plastic breaks down, not only does the size of the particles change, but their properties change as well. If a plastic fragment with a diameter of about 5 millimeters disintegrates into particles approximately 1 micrometer in size, their number increases by many orders of magnitude. From a single such fragment, hundreds of billions of microscopic particles can be formed. At the same time, their total surface area increases dramatically. It can be thousands of times greater than a original fragment. And it is precisely that surface that determines how actively the particles interact with the water, air, chemical substances, and living tissues. In addition, as the size decreases, the role of surface effect increases, including the ability of plastic particles to acquire and retain a surface electric charge. The presence of a charge increases their physical-chemical activity. Consequently, plastic fragmentation means not just its mechanical destruction, but the transition of the material to a different state, from relatively inert light waste to a huge number of active microscopic particles. And for such particles, surface interactions become a determining factor in their behavior in natural and biological systems. And we will return to these consequences of this transition later. There are already more than 200 million tons of plastic waste in the ocean, and this amount is increasing every day. It was believed that the ocean was the final destination for plastic accumulation and the kind of global landfill, but it turned out to be only intermediate reservoir. Scientists estimate that sea breezes can carry up to 136,000 tons of microplastics ashore each year. And that is more than 370 tons every day. That is why coastal residents are among the first to bear the load of this impact. Today, there are 5 so-called garbage patches in the world's ocean. However, the situation in the Mediterranean Sea, which scientists are already calling the 6th garbage patch, is particularly concerning. But unlike the others, it is invisible because it consists mainly of microplastics. In this region, the concentration of microplastics in surface waters is 4 times higher than the area of so-called Pacific garbage patch. And this makes the problem particularly significant for residents of European countries. However, the impact of plastic is not limited to coastal regions. After rising into the atmosphere, air currents carry micro and nanoplastic thousands of kilometers inland, where they settle with the rain and snow. And for example, atmospheric precipitation of microplastics have been recorded in the mountain regions of French Pyrenees. A similar pattern has been observed from the Alps to the Arctic. In other words, Micro and nanoplastic are present not only in the areas of active economic activity, but also in the places that have traditionally been considered pristine. Settling on land along with the rain and snow, these particles accumulate in forests, on plants, on agricultural lands, and in soils. There they interact with the root systems of plants. Microplastics are found in vegetables, fruits, and cereals, and then they enter the bodies of farm animals through feed and are detected in milk and meat. In other words, plastic is already embedded in the food chains. Studies show that microplastic can also reduce photosynthesis in plants, indicating potential yield losses of approximately 4 to 14% for major crops on a global scale. In fish and land animals, micro and nanoplastics are associated with inflammation, tissue damage, metabolic disorders, and organ dysfunction. This is no longer a question of food quality, but also of food security. Consequently, micro and nanoplastics should be considered not as a local waste problem, but as a new physical and chemical factor on a planetary scale. In this regard, the problem of microplastics goes beyond waste management and needs to be addressed with a framework of policies on public health, environmental sustainability, and, as we will hear later, potential climate risks.